something I've been observing for years now, and it troubles me deeply. I've watched brilliant minds crumble. I've seen people with extraordinary potential reduce themselves to mere shadows of what they could have become. And you want to know what the common denominator was? It wasn't lack of knowledge. It wasn't absence of opportunity. It was something far more subtle, far more dangerous. They became slaves to how they felt. Listen to me very carefully. Your mood is the worst counselor you will ever have in your life. Your mood will tell you to quit on the very day your breakthrough was supposed to manifest. Your mood will convince you that you are tired when you are actually just bored. Your mood will whisper to you that it's okay to compromise just this once, and that just this once will become a pattern that defines your entire existence. I want to tell you about a man I knew. This wasn't someone from ancient texts or some figure you'd read about in history books. This was a contemporary. Someone who lived in our time, breathed the same air, faced the same kind of pressures we face today. He had a plan. At 23 years old, he sat down and wrote out a 10-year roadmap for his life. He wanted to build a business that will employ at least 50 people. He wanted to own property. He wanted to create generational wealth for his children. Beautiful plan, wasn't it? The kind of plan that makes you nod your head in approval. But here's where it gets interesting. In year 2 of that plan, something happened. The economy took a downturn. The political climate became unstable. His initial investment didn't yield the returns he projected. And naturally, predictably, his mood shifted. He became discouraged. He became anxious. He started questioning everything. Maybe this isn't the right time. He told himself, maybe I should wait for things to stabilize. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. After all, you see what happened there? His mood started having conversations with his mind. And his mind, in its weakened state, started agreeing with his mood. He abandoned the plan. Not officially, of course. He didn't tear up the paper or delete the document. He just drifted. He took a temporary job that felt safer. He postponed his business dreams for just a little while. He convinced himself he was being wise, being prudent, being realistic. I met him again 8 years later. 8 years. He was still at that temporary job, still planning to start when things get better, still waiting for his mood to give him permission to pursue his destiny. And the saddest part, he had become comfortable in his discouragement. He had made peace with his unfulfilled potential. Now, I'm not sharing this story to condemn anyone. I'm sharing it because I need you to see something critical. Your feelings are real, but they are not reliable. Your emotions are valid, but they are not visionaries. Your mood can tell you how you feel about your current circumstances, but it cannot tell you anything accurate about your future possibilities. Think about this for a moment. When you wake up on a rainy morning and you don't feel like going to work, but you go anyway, what are you doing? You are following your plan, not your mood. When you're studying for an examination at midnight and every cell in your body is screaming for sleep, but you push through one more chapter, what are you doing? You're following your plan, not your mood. The principle is simple, but the application is where most people fail. Because following your plan when your mood is good, that's easy. Anybody can do that. When you are feeling motivated, when you are feeling inspired, when everything is going well and the sun is shining and people are encouraging you, following your plan in those moments requires no character, no discipline, no strength. But when your mood is in the gutter, when you're feeling discouraged, disappointed, disillusioned, when people are criticizing you, when your efforts aren't yielding immediate results, when your body is tired and your mind is confused, that's when following your plan becomes an act of warfare. That's when following your plan separates those who will succeed from those who will have stories about what could have been. Let me give you another picture. There was a woman, a young entrepreneur, who decided she was going to write every single day for 1 year. Not because she felt like it, not when inspiration struck. Every single day She committed to producing 1,000 words daily, no matter what. She had a plan. 12 months, 365 days, 365,000 words. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But here's what she discovered. Out of those 365 days, she felt like writing on maybe 40 of them. 40 days out of 365. That's roughly 11%. 11% of the time, her mood and her plan were in alignment. The other 89%, her mood was telling her she was too tired, too uninspired, too busy, too stressed, too distracted. If she had followed her mood, she would have written 40,000 words that year. But because she followed her plan, she wrote 365,000 words. And here's the powerful part. Out of those 365,000 words, some of her best work, the pieces that eventually got published, the content that touched lives, the material that opened doors, came from days when she felt absolutely nothing. Days when she was writing mechanically, almost robotically, just keeping the commitment. Your breakthrough is not waiting for you to feel ready. Your breakthrough is waiting for you to be obedient to your plan. I need you to understand something about human nature. We are emotional beings living in a physical body, trying to accomplish spiritual and purposeful assignments. That's a complex combination. And in that complexity, our emotions often try to override our commitments. Not because emotions are evil, they're not. But because emotions are responsive to present circumstances. While your plan is responsive to future vision, your mood responds to what is. Your plan responds to what could be. Your mood is shaped by your current environment. Your plan is shaped by your desired destination. You cannot allow something as unstable as your daily emotional state to determine something as significant as your life's trajectory. That's like letting the weather determine whether or not you go to work. Imagine telling your employer, I didn't come in this week because I didn't feel like it. You'd be dismissed. Yet we treat our personal dreams, our business goals, our development plans with less seriousness than we treat our employment obligations. Why is that? It's because there's no immediate external consequence. When you abandon your personal plan, no one fires you. No one sends you a warning letter. The consequences are delayed, sometimes by years. And by the time you realize what you've lost by following your mood instead of your plan, you've already sacrificed seasons you can never recover. Here's what I've learned, and I'm speaking from years of observation and personal experience. Successful people are not people who always feel motivated. They're people who have learned to move when they don't feel motivated. They've learned to show up when showing up is inconvenient. They've learned to be consistent when consistency is costly. There's a concept I want you to grab hold of. Emotional independence. Most people are emotionally dependent. They need to feel good before they do good. They need to feel motivated before they move. They need to feel inspired before they initiate. They need to feel confidence before they commence. But emotionally independent people, they've broken that chain. They've learned to operate outside the prison of their feelings. They've discovered that action often precedes emotion, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel like doing something. You do it and the feeling follows, or it doesn't, and you keep moving anyway. Let me paint another scenario for you. Imagine a farmer who only planted seeds when he felt like it. Some days he wakes up and feels energetic, so he plants. Other days he doesn't feel like it, so he stays inside. By the time harvest season comes, his field is maybe 20% planted. His neighbor, who planted according to the seasonal calendar, regardless of how he felt, has a full harvest. Now, would you call that farmer wise? Would you say he was being authentic to his feelings? No. You'd say he was foolish. You'd say he didn't understand the principle of sowing and reaping. Yet this is exactly what we do with our lives. We plant in our careers, our relationships, our health, our finances, only when we feel like it. Then we wonder why our harvest is sparse. We wonder why other people seem to talk. be progressing while we're stagnant? The answer is simple. They follow their plan. You follow your mood. And here's something else you need to understand. Your mood is not even purely yours. Your mood is influenced by what you ate, how much you slept, who you talked to, what you watched, what you read, the weather, your hormone levels, and about 70 other variables you don't even consciously register. So when you follow your mood, you're essentially letting random environmental factors determine your destiny. Does that sound like wisdom to you? Your plan, on the other hand, was created in a moment of clarity. It was crafted when you had perspective, when you could see the bigger picture, when you were thinking long term. Your plan represents your better judgment. Your mood represents your current feeling. Which one should have authority over your life? I want to tell you about something that changed my entire perspective on this matter. Years ago, I observed high-performing individuals across different fields, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, scholars, people who had achieved extraordinary things. And I noticed a pattern. It wasn't talent. Talented people are everywhere. It wasn't opportunity. Many of them created opportunities from nothing. It wasn't even intelligence, although they were sharp. The common thread was this. They had a system and they followed it regardless of how they felt. The athlete trained on schedule, not on emotion. The entrepreneur made business calls on the plan, not on feelings. The artist created on discipline, not on inspiration. The scholar studied according to the curriculum, not according to mood swings. They had essentially removed emotions from the decision-making process for certain critical activities. Not because they were cold or unfeeling, but because they understood that emotions are terrible decision makers for long-term goals. Think about the people you admire. The ones who built something substantial. The ones who've achieved something significant. Do you think they felt like doing everything they did? Do you think every step of their journey was accompanied by enthusiastic feelings? Absolutely not. They cried. They doubted. They felt inadequate. They had days when they wanted to quit. They experienced the full range of human emotions. But here's the key. They didn't let those emotions choose their actions. They felt what they felt, acknowledged it, and then did what their plan required anyway. This is maturity. This is mastery. This is what separates the achievers from the dreamers. Now, I can hear someone saying, but aren't you supposed to be authentic? Aren't you supposed to honor your feelings? Isn't this emotional suppression? No, let me be clear. I'm not telling you to suppress your emotions. Suppression is unhealthy. What I'm telling you is to govern your emotions, not be governed by them. There's a massive difference. Acknowledging that you feel discouraged is healthy. Letting that discouragement stop you from taking your next step is destructive. Recognizing that you feel tired is wisdom. Letting that tiredness become an excuse for perpetual inaction is foolishness. Your emotions are meant to be indicators, not directors. They can tell you something about your internal state, but they cannot tell you what to do about your external assignment. That's the job of your plan, your purpose, your commitment. Here's a practical truth. The moments when you least feel like following your plan are often the most critical moments to follow it. Because those are the moments that build your character. Those are the moments that strengthen your discipline. Those are the moments that prove to yourself that you are serious about your future. Every time you follow your plan, when your mood says quit, you're making a deposit in your character account. You're building momentum. You're creating evidence for yourself that you can be trusted with your own dreams. And conversely, every time you abandon your plan because your mood shifted, you're making a withdrawal. You're weakening your resolve. You're teaching yourself that your commitments are negotiable based on how you feel. Which pattern do you want to establish? I've seen this play out in every area of life. The person who follows a fitness plan, regardless of motivation, gets results. The person who only exercises when they feel energetic stays the same. The person who follows a financial plan regardless of whether they feel like budgeting builds wealth. The person who spends based on emotion stays broke. The person who maintains their relationships through intentional effort, regardless of feelings, builds deep connections. The person who only engages when they feel like it experiences shallow, unstable relationships. The principle is universal. Your plan is the pathway to your purpose. Your mood is just the weather along the journey. Now, let me take you somewhere deeper, because there's a layer to this that most people never discover until they've wasted years of their lives. Your mood is not just unreliable, it's actually predictable in its unreliability. And once you understand this pattern, you gain a strategic advantage that most people never access. Here's what I mean. There's a cycle that happens in every significant endeavor. I call it the cycle of commitment. It has 4 distinct phases, and your mood will try to sabotage you at every single one. Phase 1, the excitement phase. This is when you first create your plan. Everything feels possible. You're energized. You can see the vision clearly. Your mood and your plan are best friends during this phase. This is when people announce their goals on social media, tell all their friends what they're about to do, maybe even spend money on equipment or courses or whatever they need to get started. But here's the trap. You start believing that this feeling is going to last. You think this excitement is going to carry. Are you through? It won't. It never does. Phase 2, the resistance phase. This is where reality introduces itself to your vision. The work is harder than you thought. The progress is slower than you expected. The obstacles are bigger than you anticipated. And suddenly, your mood shifts. The excitement evaporates. Now you're feeling doubt, frustration, maybe even regret. Your mood, which was your cheerleader in phase 1, becomes your critic in phase 2. This is where most people quit. Not officially, but practically. They don't abandon the goal outright. They just stop showing up consistently. They start making exceptions. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll start again next week. I'll resume when things settle down. Phase 3, the monotony phase. If you somehow survive phase 2, you enter this phase. This is where the work becomes routine. It's no longer exciting like phase 1, but it's also not as intensely difficult as phase 2. It's just repetitive, day after day after day of doing the same thing. And your mood during this phase, boredom, numbness, a quiet voice asking, is this all there is? Many people who survive phase 2 die in phase 3. Because at least in phase 2, there was drama, there was intensity. But phase 3 is just mundane. And human beings crave stimulation. So they abandon perfectly good plans simply because the journey became predictable. Phase 4, the breakthrough phase. This is where the compound effect kicks in. This is where all those days of showing up when you didn't feel like it start to produce visible results. This is where the harvest comes. But here's the tragedy. Most people never reach this phase because they let their mood make decisions in phases 2 and 3. I knew a young man, brilliant, creative, full of potential. He wanted to build a digital media company. He had the skills, he had some capital, he even had a few clients interested in working with him. Phase 1 was beautiful. He created a detailed business plan, registered his company, set up a professional workspace in his home, designed a logo, built a website. He was on fire. Then phase 2 hit. His first major client rejected his proposal. A project he thought would take 2 weeks, took 6 weeks. His operating costs were higher than he budgeted. Equipment failed, software crashed, and his mood collapsed with it. He started sleeping later, stopped returning calls promptly, began watching more television, spending more time on social media, doing anything to avoid the discomfort of facing his struggling business. But here's what's crucial. He didn't quit. He was too proud to quit officially. Instead, he entered what I call passive abandonment. He still had the business, still called himself an entrepreneur, but he wasn't following the plan anymore. He was following his mood. And his mood said, protect yourself from further disappointment by not trying as hard. 3 years later, I saw him again. Still had the business. Still called himself an entrepreneur. But he hadn't grown, hadn't scaled, hadn't even maintained the initial momentum. He was stuck in this perpetual phase 2, restarting and stopping, based entirely on how he felt. Meanwhile, another person I knew started a similar business around the same time. Less talented, actually. Less charismatic. Less naturally gifted. But this person had something more valuable than talent. They had commitment to their plan that superseded their emotions. When clients rejected proposals, they didn't internalize it as personal failure. They analyzed what went wrong and adjusted. When projects took longer than expected, they didn't spiral into discouragement. They refined their estimation process. When costs exceeded budget, they didn't panic. They found creative solutions and learned to negotiate better. Same challenges, different responses. And the difference, one followed their mood. One followed their plan. Today, the less talented person has a thriving company with multiple employees. The more talented person is still about to break through any day now. Talent is never enough. Potential is never enough. What matters is whether you can do what needs to be done when you don't feel like doing it. Let me give you another angle on this, because I want you to see how deeply this principle affects every dimension of your life. Consider relationships, marriages, friendships, family connections. Every meaningful relationship would test this principle. There was a couple I counseled some years ago. They came to me because their marriage was falling apart. And as I listened to them, I heard the same theme repeated over and over. I don't feel like I used to feel. The spark is gone. I'm not happy anymore. I don't feel in love. Everything was about feelings. So I asked them, when you got married, did you make vows or did you make wishes? They looked confused. I continued. Did you promise to stay as long as you feel like it, or as long as you both shall leave? Did you commit to love each other when it's convenient, or for better or worse, in sickness and health? You see, they had reduced a covenant to a mood. They had taken sacred vows and made them subject to emotional fluctuations, and the result, chaos, instability, pain. I told them, your marriage doesn't need new feelings. Your marriage needs old commitments. You need to go back to the plan you made on your wedding day and follow that plan regardless of how you feel today. That sounds harsh to modern ears, doesn't it? We've been conditioned to believe that feelings are supreme, that authenticity means doing whatever you feel like doing. But that's not authenticity, that's instability. That's not freedom, that's slavery to the weakest part of your nature. Real love, mature love, isn't a feeling. It's a decision that you remake every day regardless of feelings. Real commitment isn't emotional. It's volitional. It's a choice of the will. And this applies to everything. Your health plan, your financial plan, your educational plan, your spiritual development plan, your career plan. All of it will be tested by your mood. And all of it will fail if you make your mood the authority. Here's something I need you to hear. Your future self is depending on your present self to make decisions that your present self doesn't feel like making. Think about that. The person you're going to be 5 years from now is directly connected to the decisions you're making today. And if you only make decisions based on how you feel today, you're betraying the person you could become tomorrow. You owe your future self more than that. You owe yourself the dignity of keeping your own promises. There's a powerful truth hiding in plain sight. Consistency is a weapon. When you show up consistently, regardless of mood, you're not just building external results, you're building internal character. You're becoming someone who can be trusted, someone who can be counted on, someone whose word means something. And that version of you, that version is unstoppable. I've watched people transform their entire lives, not through dramatic moments of inspiration, but through boring, repetitive, consistent obedience to their plan. The person who writes for 30 minutes every morning becomes an author. Not because of one inspired day, but because of 1,000 uninspired days where they showed up anyway. The person who saves a portion of their income every month becomes wealthy. Not because of one windfall, but because of years of disciplined choices when they felt like spending instead. The compound effect of following your plan, even when, especially when you don't feel like it, is more powerful than any burst of motivated activity could ever be. Let me tell you about a student I encountered. Average intelligence, average resources, average everything, really. But this student decided to study for 3 hours every day, no matter what. Not when exams were approaching, not when they felt motivated. Every single day, 3 hours. Some days, those 3 hours were productive. The material clicked, understanding flowed, progress was visible. Other days, those 3 hours felt like torture. Nothing made sense. Concentration was impossible. Every minute felt like an hour. But the commitment remained 3 hours every day. 4 years later, this average student graduated top of their class. Scholarship offers, job offers, opportunities that their more naturally intelligent peers didn't receive. Why? Because while talented students studied based on mood cramming before exams, taking breaks when they felt like it, these students studied based on plan. The talented students had better days than this student ever had. But this student had more consistent days than the talented students ever achieved. And in the long run, consistency defeats intensity every single time. This is the secret that high achievers don't often talk about because it's not glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy. You can't make a motivational poster out of "I did the boring work even though I didn't feel like it." But that's the reality. That's the foundation. Every person you admire, every success story you celebrate, every achievement you respect, behind it is someone who learned to move when they didn't feel like moving. Someone who showed up when showing up was inconvenient. Someone who kept going when everything in them wanted to stop. Your plan is a covenant with your future. Your mood is a commentary on your present. Which one deserves to govern your life? Let me bring this to a close with one final thought, and I need you to really absorb this because it could change everything for you. The relationship between your plan and your mood is not adversarial. You don't have to hate your feelings to follow your plan. You don't have to become a robot to be disciplined. What you need to do is establish the proper hierarchy. Your mood can inform you. It just can't instruct you. Your emotions can advise you. They just can't authorize you. Your feelings can speak. They just can't decide. When you feel discouraged, acknowledge it. Say, "I feel discouraged right now." Then add, "and I'm going to do what my plan requires anyway." When you feel unmotivated, own it. Say, "I don't feel motivated today." Then follow it with, "but my commitment doesn't depend on my motivation." This is emotional maturity. This is spiritual strength. This is what separates people who achieve their potential from people who explain their potential. You have something in you that's trying to come forth. A business, a book, a body of work, a transformation, a legacy, something significant. And that something is waiting for you to become the kind of person who can be trusted with it. And the universe, life, destiny, whatever you want to call it, is testing you right now. Is watching to you see if you're serious. Is observing whether you follow your plan when the feelings fade. Because if you abandon your plan over a mood swing, how can you be trusted with real success? How can you be trusted with influence, with resources, with impact? Success doesn't come to people with the best plans. It comes to people who follow their plans the best. So here's my challenge to you. And I'm giving this to you as someone who cares about your outcome. Make a decision right now that your plan has authority over your mood. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Right now. Decide that the commitments you've made to yourself are non-negotiable, regardless of emotional weather, and then watch. Watch what happens when you show up tomorrow, even though you don't feel like it. Watch what happens when you do next week what your plan requires, even though your mood protests. Watch what happens over the next month, the next year, the next 5 years, as you build a reputation with yourself as someone whose word can be trusted. You'll discover something remarkable. Your mood will eventually align with your actions. Your emotions will eventually catch up to your obedience. Your feelings will eventually follow your faithfulness. But even if they don't, even if it's hard all the way through, you still arrive at your destination. You still achieve your goal. You still become who you were meant to be. Because your destiny was never dependent on how you feel. It was only ever dependent on what you do. Follow your plan, not your mood.